the artist talk with Peter Glassford. I would like to thank the board of directors and the art acquisition project for convincing Peter to come and have a show here at the center. Rebecca Gomez, the interim executive director, staff, Cassandra, Samantha, Galia, and Luis for doing everything here. We have to thank our sponsors also, Crescent Energy, Pittsburgh Paints, LNF Distributors, City of Laredo, Webb County, for sponsoring the event. My name is Pedro Morales. I will be moderating this talk. And this is Peter Glassford. I will mention a little bit about his biography. He was born in Laredo, Texas in '67, holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Texas at Austin, with concentration in sculpture and multimedia. After establishing studios in San Antonio and Laredo, he relocated to Mexico in '96, where the culture deeply influenced his work. Straddling both art and design, Glassford has built a career that includes founding a non-profit gallery, Triangle Project Space in Texas, and creating bespoke furniture and murals through his Guadalajara-based factory, which he runs alongside his wife, Isabel Moncada. So at this point, I will ask some questions. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, can you share how growing up in Laredo has influenced your artistic journey?
Well, it influenced it a lot. I would say growing up in Laredo was unique. I think growing up in West Texas or North Texas would be things that are similar to Laredo, but when you have a river running through the community and you have one country on one side and one on the other, it seems to be almost one place, but not quite the same because of an international boundary. That makes a big difference in how you perceive things. And in my case, I grew up on the river, on a house that overlooked the river in South Laredo, and so visually, it was very stimulating. There was lots of activity like smuggling and border patrol activity, and all of that has an impact on you as a child. It makes you think of all kinds of interesting things and how to be creative. I think also growing up close to nature was very important for my formation as an artist, because from a child I was always working with sticks and building things, and I can see that what I do now, started a long time ago in my infancy. There was lots of experiences in Laredo, and I could go on for hours of why I think it influenced my work, but there's a lot of artists from Laredo, and I think it's kind of appropriate that this place generated them.
Yes.
Yourself included.
Yeah, and this is what this acquisition project is. We realized there were so many artists from Laredo that have departed, looking for opportunities, and just researching them and making a list of all of these. Yes, there's many that are from here, and there is something here that
there is something that's about
that produces.
Two cultures, two languages, and having this one community, which now is kind of fractured because of not many people visit Mexico from Laredo, and I think that's a sad part, but growing up here, you know, it was going to the other side, vamos al otro lado. It was really common to say that. We didn't say we're going to Mexico. And so it was really one community divided by a river. And I think that culturally was super important. Also, you know, the mixture of different peoples in this area is very unique. You know, Mexicans that live on the U.S. side, people coming through and then leaving. There used to be an Air Force here, an Air Force base, and that was strange as well. I don't know. There's a lot to work with.
Yeah.
You know.
The phenomenon of these Mexican workers that are in the U.S. and then they come at Christmas.
Oh yeah, loaded with all kinds of goodies
they
for the
cross
family.
fingers. To me, that was
Washers and
always-
dryers, bicycles, primarily.
Yeah. Okay, so you described building your first chair in Laredo as a compulsive exercise using rudimentary skills. What kept you going back to that form over and over? And this is the silla partera.
Well, the silla partera it's just on the other side of this wall. It's a traditional design that started in Europe. It was meant to be a birthing chair. So if a woman was in labor, you're in an upright position. You're able to push using gravity as opposed to laying on your back or on your side. And so the silla partera is also, you would see it in Mexico. People would use it as a sort of a simple chair that had a handle in the back, so you could easily take it outside or put it on the sidewalk when the night was cool and sit outside. It was a beautiful design. It had only 3 legs, and I don't know where exactly I saw it for the first time, but I decided I was going to make a 3-legged chair just impulsively because I liked it so much. And I also had seen an art piece by the artist David Ireland in San Francisco where he found a broken chair which just had 3 legs, and he associated it with this practice in Africa because he used to be a safari guide, and there's a little sort of story about 3-legged dogs in Africa, and I won't get into that, but it was an important piece, so I decided to kind of conjoin the 2 influences on my own and make a very simple chair without using nails or any hardware. And I wasn't trained as a carpenter. I was handy, but the first chair is really brutal looking. It's very, very primitive. But I just kept making those chairs over and over again and changing them, making them more comfortable, because that was my process. I didn't study design. This young man here went to architecture school, and I know a lot of architects that design furniture, but in my case, it was a process, and I just kept doing it over and over. I also found that people were interested in these chairs, and I started selling them. So the first set of chairs I sold was actually in San Antonio, and I thought, wow, I can make some money off of this. So I think it's a combination of obsessive, doing things over and over, but also when you are hard up for money, you just keep, if something is bringing in, a living, you keep doing it. It sounds very, very base, but it's true. When I started recycling wood and things like that, it was just because I didn't have money to go buy wood. And when I started making chairs, I made them out of like lumber because I didn't have money for fine wood or anything like that. So it's interesting how economic forces and then also aesthetic decisions that you make sort of come together. I was also making the wooden figures at the time, so I was working with the figure and also doing furniture at the same time. That was in 93. I had a studio in the Tex-Mex rail yards that I rented from furniture and crate, not furniture, but wood and old crates and machinery. And so I just got to work there. Started making figures out of the wood that was there. I started making furniture out of the wood that was there. And so one thing led to another, you know, I think that that's why it became sort of an accident, you know.
And the design, the purpose of the design is for women to give birth.
Yeah, sí, partera, yes.
Did you change did you carry this use or purpose of this chair across your design so that it could have a different design but still women can give birth?
No. And in fact, when somebody told me it was a birthing chair, I thought it was a joke, to be honest with you. I didn't really think that was the case. The birthing chairs were, like in Europe, were used, like we're talking like 17th century, 18th century, as a way to give birth in labor, because they're very short, and so you could sit on the edge and push, and the midwife could be there, you know, to receive the child. But in the case of Mexico, it was just an abstraction of that original design. So yes, it was very short. You could use it as a birthing chair if you wanted to, but nobody was using it as birthing chairs.
And what is the difference between the design of a birthing chair and maybe the end product of your, did you change maybe the length of the
They were
seat?
very short, so it was a chair that you could really just sit pretty much on the edge.
Mhm.
And then gradually they got a little deeper, and then they gradually got a little wider, and then I found a way to put arms on them, so they became an armchair.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's all I'm gonna do. I can't do any more furniture. This is the best it's gonna be. And then I started making other designs and other designs and other designs. And so on the right hand side, you'll see designs that are a little thinner, a little bit more sophisticated. And I just kept going with it in that way. You know, it was very fortunate that I had a brother that said, hey, I need a desk. And so I made a desk, and that's over there. I found some lumber and made a kitchen island for my mother, so that was nice as well. But it was all just sort of like trying to find a way. It's almost kind of like like you're a little mouse and you're trying to find the hole in the wall so you can go through the hole, you know. And that's what I was doing in Laredo at the time. And everybody was very, very worried. They were like, "What is he doing in there?" You know. It was funny.
I remember 92, 93, I was working with Viviana and Frank Rogowski, and they were designing furniture. In fact, they had a art exhibit at the college called, I don't remember what it was called, El Portal or something like that, where there was a lot of furniture, and Viviana was designing chairs and Frank tables and things like that. So,
I missed that.
yeah.
But that's where I met you. I went in and asked them if they needed any help with anything, and so I picked up a small job there. But those were very precarious times for me. I was, I was determined to not work for other people. So I was kind of like a miniature contractor, artist, furniture maker. Yes.
That's the way to do it. Okay, next question. Your murals feel equal parts improvisation and intention. When you're assembling, what guides your decisions? Instinct, rhythm, or memory?
Instinct and rhythm. I think memory is the one element that you don't want to have in your mind when you're doing random composition, because if you're thinking of something as a memory, it's going to lead you to put the wood on the panel in a certain fashion. I've said that it's very, very difficult to not repeat yourself. So what I've done is I started these random panels, not as panels, but as murals, like the green piece that's in the center. So I was making these large murals of all the scrap wood that was being generated by the furniture company that I was partnered in. And we used to take all that scrap wood, pile it up, and then we would give it to brick makers and they would use it as fuel to burn bricks. And I was trying to find another life, another use for this resource. It was very beautiful. You would many times pick something up off the floor and it was like, wow, look at that amazing small piece of wood. The grain is so different. It wasn't like oak, which is very boring, but some of the Mexican woods, some of the other woods that we were using were so unique, the small pieces and the grain and the color. And so I was trying to find a use for them. So I started making these large murals in a similar way that I was making these three-legged chairs. I just went for it. I just said, okay, I'm gonna try a mural and see what I can do. And so I started first with a house that I was working on in San Antonio. You know, in a warehouse, I made this sort of curved wood mosaic wall in San Antonio with scrap that I had shipped up. Then the second one was something, a commission for a hotel. That was from that first loft piece. Somebody saw it and they liked it and they commissioned me to do a piece for a hotel in the lobby. And so again, this sort of accidental way of going forward with a project, I could say that the audience or the people that appreciated the work are the ones that drew me forward. The same way with the furniture. I was doing these sculptural pieces and people were like, wow, these figures are beautiful. But what about that chair? I was like, oh, you like that chair? Yes, it's very interesting. I would like to have one, you know? And so I think if you are perceptive, people will show you where to go as an artist, you know? And so in the sense of that mural, I did the first one for myself, but somebody saw it and then so on and so on. And I kept going with these large scale murals that I would make in very large sections and then assemble on site. I was doing them in Mexico and I was shipping. And then somewhere around 2012, somebody said, why don't you make these smaller panels so people can buy a certain amount? And I won't claim that I thought of that. It was just listening to somebody, I was being perceptive. I said, what a wonderful idea. And so we started making the panels based on the same type of composition, which was totally random composition without any pattern. But now we were making these small, digestible panels that you could buy one or however many you like, and they're modular panels and you can put them together in any fashion, any way you like. I call them tiles because they can be flipped and turned. And it was during this time that I started teaching other carpenters how to help me do this work. And so I would teach them, get them started, and then go in there and make sure everything was good. And now we make these panels like furniture. They're all unique, they're all different. Sometimes some of the carpenters will want to repeat themselves and we have to throw that panel out. But I've taught them the same discipline and I feel very happy that, you know, it's not just me, but now we have a little business where we're making these artistic panels that can be used as art. They are art, but they are also sort of like a design material, you know. They solve these problems for people that have very cold spaces or they need some warmth. And so I would say the emphasis of these panels is to bring warmth to spaces, to bring art and aesthetic value using valueless materials wherever that may be. You know, the modular size is really, really helpful.
And these modules are 2 by 2 feet, something like that?
They're 2 by 2, 1 by 2, and 1 by 1. And so they fit together perfectly, all put together.
This particular mural, did you design it for the space, or like you say?
Yes, I designed for the space. I wanted to sort of curtain off the exhibition because the show is really 2 shows for me. We have the communal mural in the back, and then we have my big mural in the front. I did, you know, design these colors and in these diagonals to sort of bringing your eye focusing onto the center mural and through the opening. I wanted to sort of mask off the exhibition so that it would be kind of a surprise as you move through the space. This mural is a little special in the colors and the finishes that I picked, but the brown, the naturals, the blacks, those are colors that we do on a regular basis.
And I like these details that you put on the edges where it passes the lines, the horizontal lines, and then the type of pixels over here.
I like it that everybody can see whatever they want to see in it as well. I mean, a lot of people have told me that they look at their mural every day, and every day they have a different feeling about it. I think it's the type of work that doesn't require a lot of language to describe. I think it just makes your eye move a lot, and I think it's a feeling that you get, and I enjoy the fact that it appeals to many different people. Everybody seems to like it in a way. They feel some sort of warmth from it.
Yes, they're beautiful. You work across design, sculpture, and public art. How do you think about authorship or identity in your work, especially when moving between functional pieces and large-scale murals?
Well, going back to this first mural, it is functional in the sense that it serves a purpose by imbuing the space with action and with color and with warmth of natural wood tones. The next part of your question was authorship.
Authorship or identity in your work. How do you think about it?
I don't think about identity in my work. I like the fact that I am not this work. You know, I like the fact that it's not like bombastic that what I want to say or anything like that. I feel like it's it has like many voices and it has many people that are put together. So I think of it as a collective project, to be honest with you. People say, oh, I love your artwork. And it's like, well, you know, I did start this, but it's not just me. You know, I have really good carpenters and people helping me, and so it's a collective effort. And in fact, I've always been sort of selling this as my work, Peter Glassford, because I didn't know any better, but we're actually going to rebrand this, and it's going to be called Brutal Nature. And so it is a collective, and I like it to be that way. I also like it to be very accessible price-wise and things like that. So this to me is like more of a communal thing, and it's also the way people can access it via online. They can buy it online right now in other websites, but I like the fact that people don't have to know me and they can appreciate it. And the story is random, you know, chaotic composition.
For me, I think it is you, but also because each panel is made of so many pieces, it's a collective of artisans and carpenters.
Well, it's also a way of like putting the tree back together in a way, like Humpty Dumpty, and so we're giving the tree sort of a new life in a way, as opposed to throwing it away. A lot of shops grind up their scrap, or they throw it out, or people take it and burn it. And we go around the shops now and we collect their scrap and we recycle it. So what we actually throw out is very little. As you go through the exhibition, for example, the green mural, that is more personal because I just happen to like that color very much. And so that becomes more personal because I actually have to make those pieces. But the front wall is really, I would say, is more like a collective sort of effort, and it's it's a business. So it's art, it's also business. Going through the show, you know, now you're seeing murals that are things that I did on a hunch that I had, you know, by putting that big tree trunk in the center of the mural and trying to break up what I normally do. It's me trying to explore and find other ways to do these large compositions using brass, metal, and other materials. There's a few of them mixed in. The other large white mural with the green and brass, I mean, that's white stucco. It's actually called chubul. It's from the Yucatan, and they use it. The Mayans used to use it in their temples. You know, the pre-Columbian temples were never all these beautiful stone pyramids. They were all covered with stucco and painted polychrome. Very different feeling. You know?
This is a material from Yucatan.
It's from Yucatan. It's a local. It's like a limestone that the entire Yucatan is made out of limestone. The soil is actually very, very thin, and the jungle grows on top of that thin soil, the limestone, and right below that is a water table, lots of water. But that stone can be cooked and ground up like cement and mixed with tree resin. I'm not sure what tree it is, but it looks like tea. And so you mix it with this sort of tea-like substance, and it gets nice and hard, very hard. It's very natural. And again, why I chose that material, I just responded to the feeling of the material, the texture of it, and wanting to explore different materials in this exhibition. So those two murals are really what I contributed to the show. The rest of it is sort of like where I've been and where I'm going.
What inspired the idea for a collaborative mural with students, and what surprised you in the way it came together? This is the mural in the back. That was part of the workshop, yeah.
Well, what inspired me the most was, I guess I should say, what I did not want to do, which is put up my work and have a show and that's it. I thought that was kind of one-dimensional, and I wanted to bring more of an action to the exhibition. So the collective mural was fun for me because I've never done a mural workshop, but I have done a drawing workshop. I did a drawing workshop here in the 90s for children. They were like, I think 9 to 12. And we had a great time. And so I was remembering what I did in the 90s when I was doing the furniture here in that hot warehouse over by the Tex-Mex tracks. And I thought, well, why not do that again? And why not coach students to not repeat themselves, to not do a pattern? And that was actually kind of difficult. One person, Norma, was always making stars, or she was developing patterns within these small murals. And that's when I realized we had to make gestures and not sort of small collages. And so you'll see on the bottom part of the collective mural, it's a little bit more cautious, a little bit more, how should I say, fine and lots of minutia. Once we went through several days, I was like, okay, now we have to make these big gestures, and now I have to intervene a little bit more. I was letting everybody kind of do what they wanted to do at first. I became more demonstrative and asking people to do different things as we move forward. And you could see things got a little bit wilder and crazier, and that's the texture that I was really looking for, which is this deep texture of worthless material, trash. I'm very passionate about recycling.
Yeah.
But I thought it was successful. I thought it turned out really well, I think.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of how do you say, the people that came to work, the students were very excited about working.
They were motivated.
Producing, and yes, it was the beginning of it was slow.
Low energy.
Yes,
the beginning was very
this
like
huge empty wall, and the first 2 days we were like, okay, if
we're not making
If
enough
this
progress.
doesn't move faster, yeah, it's not
Mhm.
gonna get finished. So, because they were very focused on the details of each panel.
Exactly.
Then the next days, it was like you say, gestures, and it grew.
It grew, and we started developing a nice rhythm.
Yeah.
And then we started also just seeing very plainly that we need to make the big steps every day, big steps every day. So hopefully we'll get that center community panel finished by August 1st.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 weeks. But it was rewarding. I'm looking forward to doing another one someday.
So the last question: what's one piece of advice you'd offer to artists who feel pulled between disciplines, or who don't quite fit into one category of an artist?
Well, I think I can empathize with that question, because when I was in art school, in fine art school, I did receive some criticism that I was kind of all over the place. I was very dedicated to sculpture, but then I got into new media at the time. That's what they called it, which was digital media, video and film. And at one point we were doing performances with Carolee Schneeman. She had a class there as well, and I was all over the place. And I felt like it was right to do so, as opposed to digging down and just doing one thing. So my advice would be to, if you are spread out, go for it, and eventually settle into a mixture of different disciplines that you like to do. Like, for example, my big mixture of disciplines is artwork and design, and making a living off of that. I am very motivated by doing this, but doing this in a way that I can actually sustain. We have 20 people working for us. Not all of them are doing collage work, but I feel very happy that we're doing something very creative, it's very unique, and lots of people are being able to buy these smaller panels, and we can do that. I think if I was digging into one sort of discipline, my life would be very one-dimensional. I think it's good to be obsessive. I think it works for certain people, but not for everybody. So if somebody has many interests and wants to spread themselves around, I think that's completely fine. I think that's a good thing. We need more of that.
Yeah. Are you presently searching for example, designing something else that is not shown here? For example, you've done furniture and chairs, these murals, and then you're changing the way the design of the murals.
I'm evolving the mural work a little bit, but I'm looking forward to working back with the figure, like those wooden figures that are on the other side.
Yes.
I really want to get back into that and kind of go back through. I'm always looking at something else, and I'm seldom reflecting on my past work. And so this show here in Laredo has been very helpful for me, because I wanted to remember for my own posterity, for my own self, what happened when I moved back here after graduating from college and traveling. And it's been a long process, and so for me it was very helpful to go back into my old work and bring these old chairs out that I've had in storage, or some of them I had to borrow from people that I know. Some came from San Antonio, some were actually here. And so it's been helpful to reunite all these pieces together and to remember my own history. And so the figures are part of that, and so I'd like to go back and maybe go back into the figure and do some figurative work. It would be really fun for me, and to step back a little bit from the random collage, it was a good show for me. It's very exciting. I'm also excited about maybe doing a mural workshop in the future somewhere else. That could be really, really interesting as a sort of a group action for our community. There's long as we get good participants, it would be great.
Yeah, I think it has to do with beginning, and then they start with that rhythm,
Mhm.
and then you cannot stop them.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was like, how can I get them? I didn't know how to really do it either, so it was just, I discovered the process, and they were discovering their own process.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of like go out and collect trash so they can understand what was a material without value. Because people started to clean their closets and bring things in that they were gonna donate to Goodwill. I was like, no, that has value. We want really, really valueless material. So it was fun. I enjoy accidents and bringing things, making them happen like fire. It was fun. It was really fun.
No rules.
No rules, exactly.
Okay, so at this point, we can take questions from the audience.
Mhm.
Any
Does anybody
questions?
have any questions?
Where's your factory at?
We have a shop in Guadalajara, Jalisco. So I've been in Mexico now since 1996. I lived a little bit in San Antonio in the 2000s, but my business has always been in Guadalajara. So I was independent artist, and I got into business in the furniture world, and that lasted for like 20 years. And now I have a business with my wife, who does the lighting. She's a lighting designer. When we make the lighting there, and I do these panels at the same shop, and we do a little bit of furniture, but that's where we are, Jalisco. And then I also have a business in San Antonio, a warehouse.
That's that Texas project?
What's that?
That's that Texas project that you talked about?
That's right. It's in south of Blue Star, in the Lone Star District. Yes, ma'am.
I'm really curious, what maybe was an exciting moment for you during the workshop process? Was there a time when you were like not foreseeing something that excited you and you kind of were taken by surprise? Did anything like that happen to you during that? Or maybe like during the process of putting the mural together and like everyone had individual ideas of what it should look like, and once it came together, it was a completely different monster, right?
I think one of the things that surprised me is how I got to be a little bit more aggressive, you might say, as an instructor. In the beginning, I was like kind of hands off, and I was like, well, if this is going to be an accidental composition, well, people have to make their little accidents, you know. I can't make it for them. But I didn't know that I could find that sort of energy, but I started going around like saying, no, let's make a bigger gesture, more volume, and sort of finding interesting things on the floor and plunking them down in front of somebody and saying, let's put that there. And I think that made it funner for them as well. It became more of a collaboration, as opposed to everybody kind of drilling down and doing their own little thing. It started to knit people together, and people started talking more and moving around more and getting more excited. So that was a surprise for me. But I really didn't know how it was going to turn out. I was very intimidated by the whole process when I got here. I was kind of scared. I was like, can we do this? If it doesn't look good, how are we going to do it? Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I have lots of questions for you.
Okay.
So I've known you
I'm sure
for
they're
a long
good.
time. So, I think my question is sort of about how you formed as an artist.
Mhm.
Now, your brother, Peter, is an artist
Tommy.
and a sculptor, so it's something about, and then Andrew, your brother, is a jeweler, so there are
Mhm.
three Glassford boys that I'm aware of
Mhm.
that have become successful visual artists
Mhm.
in the world. So how did you all come out of this family and this culture? Where was that coming from? In your mother, your dad, your?
Well, I can't put my finger on it. I also have other siblings we're all very different. But I can say that I think growing up in the 70s, we were allowed a lot of freedom, and my mother and father were very happy to just let us be. And so I think when you have that freedom, that like, where is he? I don't know. Is he's okay? Okay, fine. They weren't bothering you like, "Well, are you doing your homework? Are you doing this?" Everybody was. I was a good student, so that wasn't actually the case. But I think that freedom allows you to dream and think of things, and allows your imagination to flow. And I feel like that was the most wonderful part of growing up. Maybe that has something to do with having another brother that's an artist and another one who's a jeweler. That's the most I could say. I could say that also my mother and father were, they didn't indoctrinate us or tell us what to think. They did tell us how to behave. That was another story, but we weren't told, believe in this or believe in that. We were expected to do certain things, but we weren't indoctrinated to do certain things. So I think maybe having that freedom is what allowed some of us to be artists,
So another word for that freedom might be privilege.
Yes.
I'm a child of privilege, and my family, doctor family, could be kind of encouraged to become who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so in your family, there was this sense that you could become. Many artists don't have that sense of we can dream and become. We have to deal with the hardness of our reality. So, and this question is related to then your move to Mexico instead of New York, or you moved where you even
I moved in the opposite direction.
You were in a binational culture here, and now you're living in Mexico, where you even sort of more. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you where you're living, but you're even further outside the indigenous culture because you're an American and you're in Pueblo and all like that. So that's kind of where I'm coming to, is how you ended up deciding to go south. Your brother's studio, Peter's, is I believe in Mexico City. So both,
Tommy.
Tommy, you're sorry. Yeah, I'm a little nervous asking this question because it's real personal, but it's sort of how you ended up, and what's it like for you into that culture?
Well, it can be very lonely and it can be very rewarding, but it can be lonely in the sense that I'll never belong to Mexican culture. Even though I grew up on the border, I still feel like there's lots of rules that are from the frontera onto this side, and I can't break those rules, or feel a certain way. It's unusual in that I want to adapt. I speak the language very well. I get along very well. I understand the culture, but there's certain things that make you an Anglo-American, which I am. I'm a WASP. I grew up in Laredo, Texas, which there was very many of us, and so that isolation is what I feel there. I kind of felt that here sometimes as well. I can remember, being called güero, and I thought they were calling me a bad word, like a bad name. Like, hey, güero. I was like, I'm not güero, leave me alone, I didn't really understand it when you're little, but you're different. And so I'm very different down there as well, but I think that's my modus operandi. I can't, when I was in, out of university, everybody was going to graduate school because then they were going to maybe teach or develop their careers more, and people were going to, the Northeast, going to Chicago, and I didn't want to do that. I just felt like that was maybe too easy. I don't know.
So
There's always been that part of me that's against all that, and I don't know why, but it was bred into me somehow. But I was always against that, and so I didn't want to move to New York or anything like that, because that's I'm gonna do art where in the middle of nowhere where it really counts. And so being in Laredo at one point in the early 90s, I felt like I didn't feel like I had failed, but I felt like, wow, I'm really isolated here, especially in that warehouse. But it felt good. I would go to San Antonio once in a while and hang out there with my friends and come back and get back to work. I don't know why I was always that way, but it just happened,
What years were you at UT?
86 to like 91. 90, I think 90 and 90. I was there for 5 years. Yeah, 4.5, 5 years.
Ethel Shipton talks like you about this growing up in this culture,
Mhm.
and it's like a unique creation.
It is a
in
unique
this
creation.
culture.
There's no other culture like Laredo. It's not in McAllen. I don't know Brownsville or Laredo, but I seriously doubt if Brownsville's like Laredo. Laredo's very unique. I've never been to El Paso and hung out there, but I don't think it's the same. And you don't find it in Chicago or Los Angeles, where you also have huge Latino communities. This is very unique culture. It's a beautiful culture. I know. I remember growing up, people spoke beautiful Spanish and beautiful English.
Peter, I'm gonna stop, because I've talked too much, but I do wanna thank you so much for making this fabulous exhibit.
Thank you.
And one of the challenges in this space is the scale.
Well, you said that somebody should do something tall, and I thought the same when I came walking through here 6 months ago. I was like, I am gonna do something tall.
Yeah, you really did it, and
Yeah,
it's
thank you. It's a
just
beautiful space.
majestic, yeah.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous space. Anybody else?
I just have a curiosity, like the craftsmen in your workshop,
Mm-hmm.
have you noticed, like they're all random tiles?
Mm-hmm.
Have they developed their own voice? In other words, can you look at some random tile over there and say, oh, so-and-so made that?
No, not in this, because this is a mixture of tiles from different years.
No,
But at the shop, I can kind of tell
yeah,
sometimes which guy did what, and we're gonna start signing them on the back. In fact, they were supposed to start doing that last month. Just a little, initial on the back so we can tell who did what.
that's good.
But there have been guys that have, we only have 2 or 3 working on collage at a time. But not everybody's been very good at it. Some of them aren't, some guys aren't. But the wonderful thing about this work is you don't have to be a skilled carpenter. You have to have feeling, but you don't have to have super high skills. You just have to let yourself go and find shapes. Many times, guys will do like sort of like a caterpillar zigzag shape with the bandsaw, and I'm like, no, don't do that again. Or they'll do like these sort of dig marks in very, in a piece of wood, and it looks too planned, So, like I say, it's about coaching, and they don't have to have the best skills as a carpenter. They just have to have that feeling.
So they're
Anything else?
carpenter and artists.
Carpenter, an artist, an accidental designer, not very well spoken. I hope that everybody understood kind of like where I'm coming from. I know that sometimes my phrases and sentences aren't well constructed, but that's kind of the way my brain thinks, kind of works.
Have you ever taken a break or walked away from your craft to kind of just take some time, kind of?
I have. There have been long stretches where I don't do anything in the studio because I have other responsibilities, and so, I have to make sure that everybody has enough work to do that's paid so that we can keep the business going. So I enjoy the business aspect, but there are times when I'll be like 1, 2 months and I'm not doing anything creative, and then I get kind of grumpy, or the studio that I want to work in is filled with stuff that I didn't put there, and so I have to pull that out. And so there have been times when, forced to take a pause many times, many times. But I'm looking forward to like letting my business sort of run itself, and then me going back to the studio. I think it would be helpful for me to go back and do those figures, for example. Yeah, that's what I really want to do.
Who's buying the artwork?
These panels.
Yeah.
These panels.
Offices or?
Designers, architects, individuals. They get it and they want to put it either in their home or in their project. So that's my market. I would say
Are you
that
online?
online. We sell these on First Dibs, which is an online platform. And people also look for us. They send us inquiries, and we sketch up a layout for them. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more crazier if they're willing to go into that. And we send them a proposal, we ship it to Laredo, and from Laredo it goes to wherever it needs to go. But the murals, I would say I do like one a year. This year I did those two in about 2 or 3 months, 2 months. But the mural work is really more time consuming for me. And those are commissioned, so those, if somebody asks me to do it, then I do it. But these front panels, we're making these all the time.
And the clients put them together, or do you?
Yeah, the clients
do you
put
go
them together.
Supervise
People say like, oh, I want you to send me a plan and I want you to number them, each one. I say, no, you're part of the project. So you put them out on the floor, and if you like one, if your eye is drawn to this one panel, put it at eye level, or put it by the door that you're going to walk through all the time. So I make them be part of the artistic process, and they love it. For the most part, people like that a lot. Not everybody is in the creative process, and some people get really nervous, but I coach them. So I don't just like send them an invoice and say bye-bye. I talk to them, I send them a drawing, I sketch something out for them, and then they're like, oh, I get it. Oh, wow. And then when they realize they can flip them and turn them and put them any way they want, people are very pleased, and it's rewarding for them. Yeah.
So I've seen that you've installed murals, or you have murals in Canada somewhere, and in
There's one
Mexico.
in Toronto, Mexico City, primarily in North America.
And these you go and install them and build them there, or
Only
this is
once
just
in a
like-
while I'll install them, but for the most part, I give them all the material that they need. I tell them how to do it, and they put it up with a carpenter or a handyman. Yeah. That's right.
Peter, could
Yes,
you
sir.
say something about Isabella's lighting, her career, and
Well, her career is kind of accidental as well, in the sense that she studied psychology and graduated with a degree in psychology, and was teaching. And she was always artistic, but never thought about she thought about pursuing sculpture, but didn't have the wherewithal to go to the school in Spain that she wanted to go to, and so she's always been very creative. Her and her sister, she has a twin sister. They're cuatas, which means they're not identical, but they sure look alike. But both of them were very creative. My sister-in-law is a jewelry designer, and kind of like me, Isabella's been all over the spectrum. She started making lamps, and first they were made out of PVC pipe. You know, that she would drill holes in PVC pipe, put a bulb in there, and had kind of like a, sort of a cylindrical, cool vibe lamp. But her work has evolved tremendously. Now she's using bronze fittings that are cast with a lost wax method and polished very beautifully, and she calls them mole collection or molecule collection because they look like molecules. These bronze fittings are like a Y with basically a Y, but they have a little bit of a turn to each branch, and so depending on how you twist them, you can get them to bend in these beautiful branch-like positions. So yeah, she and I have a lot in common. We have a similar way of thinking, not always the same strategy on how to get there, but we became business partners in 2016, and we decided to join forces, and it's been very successful, doing furniture and artwork and the lighting in the same house. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you ever find yourself like with a lack of inspiration, and what do you do to combat those times?
All the time. Lack of inspiration, yes. Well, to combat those, lately I've been trying to not read the news too much. So, and I've been trying to listen to my instincts a little bit more and go back into that sort of playful mode of just grabbing something and doing something and not really knowing why. Like, for example, that white mural that's with brass in the back, that was like a drawing that I kept drawing over and over, and it was based on the river. Like when you fly over the Rio Grande, you can see, you know, fields that are irrigated off to the sides, and they have that sort of like patch structure from this central element, the river. Anywhere you look down out of the plane, you'll see a beautiful river, and sometimes you'll see these irrigated fields. And then that became sort of like this centipede form or this leaf form. But I just kept kind of going over, and if I was on the phone doodling this drawing, and that would be something that I would consider inspirational to get out of. Find something that motivates you and not knowing why. You know? I think a lot of art is kind of killed when it's given too much meaning. I think what I've always aspired to is art that doesn't have to be justified by a language or by a description.